You know that specific feeling when you unlock your phone, open a news app, and it feels like the entire world is just screaming at you all at once?
The doom scroll effect. Yeah.
Right. But it's not just about bad news anymore. It's the sheer volume. 3 million documents released here, a market crash there, a political scandal over there, all happening inside, what, a 48-hour window? It feels like chaos.
It does. But the stack of reports and analysis we're looking at today argues it's actually the complete opposite of chaos.
It's a strategy, a very calculated one.
Exactly.
And if you've felt overwhelmed, confused, or just exhausted by the news cycle recently, specifically looking at that little window around the start of February, these sources say, well, congratulations, the system is working exactly as intended.
It's a comforting thought, isn't it? They're confused by design.
Comforting is one word for it. Terrifying is another. Welcome to the deep dive. Today we're on a very specific mission. We are unpacking a chaotic sequence of events that took place between a Friday and a Monday, just recently.
To the casual observer, or, even the average news junkie, these look like three totally separate browser tabs.
Right.
You had a massive data dump from a scandal that's a decade old, a bureaucratic shakeup at the Federal Reserve, and a historic crash in precious metals.
But the sources we've analyzed for this, they argue these aren't separate stories at all. They're one single coordinated operation, a controlled demolition of the financial markets, all hidden behind a wall of noise.
And to really get how they pulled it off, you have to start with that noise. The sources, they refer to the overarching strategy as the fire hose of falsehood.
Which is an incredibly evocative name. It sounds like something out of a dystopian novel. But this has roots in military strategy, doesn't it?
It does. It was originally coined by researchers at, I believe, the RAND Corporation. It describes a propaganda technique where the goal isn't to convince you of a lie.
Okay, so what is the goal then?
The goal is to flood the zone with so much sheer volume, true, false, contradictory, boring, scandalous, that your brain just, it gives up trying to process it.
So it's censorship through noise.
Precisely. Think about old school censorship. You have a smoking gun document. You shred it, you burn it, you delete it. But in the digital age, if you delete something, you create the Streisand effect.
It just draws more attention to it. What are they hiding?
Exactly. So instead of hiding the smoking gun, you just bury it under a mountain of useless paperwork. You surround the signal with chaff.
And this leads to something the sources call cognitive exhaustion.
Right. Think of your brain as having a truth-checking battery. Every time you see a headline, you spend a little bit of energy verifying it. Does this look real? Is the source biased?
And when you get hit with 3 million headlines at once,
That battery hits zero. You physically cannot process the information, and so you stop checking. You start relying on mental shortcuts, or worse, you just check out completely. You assume, well, if it's this messy, I'll never know the truth.
and that apathy, that's the win for them.
That is the victory condition for the fire hose.
One of the specific tactics the sources highlight, and I found this fascinating because I see it constantly now, is the zombie narrative. Can we break that down?
Oh, this is everywhere. It's the concept of information recycling. The sources describe it as taking, say, a video clip or a document from 10 years ago. You strip the date, strip the context.
You just inject it into the current timeline. So you take a riot video from 2015, post it today with a caption like, look what's happening, and it feels like a current crisis.
Exactly. Because the footage is real, it passes that initial sniff test. Your eyes see it and say, that happened, but it's being deployed to manipulate the present moment.
And this feeds into what they call information laundering.
Right. It's a cycle. A fringe account posts the zombie story, then some mid-tier influencers start just asking questions about it. Finally, a mainstream outlet reports on the controversy surrounding the post, not the facts of the post itself.
And once it's in the mainstream,
Yeah.
it's laundered. It's a legitimate news topic.
The fake crisis becomes real. And you repeat phrases like scandal or leak so often, what the source calls semantic saturation, that they just lose all meaning.
If everything is a bombshell, then nothing is.
One source described it quite colorfully as flooding the zone with shit.
Right. We can read between the lines there. So, okay, we have the theory, the fire hose. Now let's look at the practice. This brings us to that Friday, the day the fire hose was turned on full blast.
The release of the Epstein documents.
3 million pages. I want to pause on that number. 3 million. Can't even visualize that. If you printed it, what is that? A stack of paper taller than a skyscraper.
And that physical volume is the weapon. The source would point out that the core information, the who knew who, has been largely public for years. But by dumping 3 million pages at one specific moment, you create this permanent fog.
You can just drip feed new details, an email here, a flight log there, to keep reanimating the story.
It sucks all the oxygen out of the room. Every journalist, every Twitter sleuth, every AI bot is focused on dissecting those files.
And that's the key. While everyone was looking down at the files,
The head of the Federal Reserve, the entity that controls the entire global reserve currency, was being decapitated.
this is the pivot, the distraction. We're talking about the removal of Jerome Powell. Now, normally, a Fed chair leaving is massive news. It stops the presses
The markets would panic just on the rumor of it, but not on that Friday.
because the world was distracted. And this wasn't a normal resignation, was it? The sources call it a renovation trap.
It's a fascinating bit of bureaucratic maneuvering. See, the president can't just fire the Fed chair. The Fed is designed to be independent. So how do you remove a chair who won't leave?
You find a crime, or you manufacture one.
Exactly. A high-profile probe was launched into fraud and mismanagement regarding the renovation of the Fed's headquarters.
Which had a price tag of something like $2.5 billion. Right?
$2.5 billion. A staggering sum. Now, whether Powell was personally signing off on gold-plated faucets doesn't really matter. The investigation was at the weapon.
It neutralized him.
Instantly. He couldn't fight back on monetary policy without looking like he was just trying to obstruct a criminal probe. He was pushed out the back door while the cameras were pointed at the Epstein dump.
And walking in the front door, Kevin Warsh.
Kevin Warsh, nominated on that exact same Friday.
Now, here is where the theory gets really specific, and honestly, a bit cynical. Because if you look closely at those Epstein files, the very ones distracting everyone, Kevin Warsh's name is actually in them.
It is. The sources highlight that he and his wife are listed in the social circles, invited to dinners.
Which, on any other day, would be a nomination killer. You can't nominate a guy to run the world's money supply if he's linked to the most toxic scandal of the decade.
Under normal circumstances, absolutely not. The Senate hearings would be brutal. But because his name was released at the same time as thousands of others, buried in millions of pages,
It was diluted.
he was hiding in plain sight. The fire hose protected him. The public was just too exhausted sifting through the noise to notice the specific signal of his name.
That is diabolically clever. So Powell is out. Warsh is in, shielded by the noise. That brings us to the aftermath, the Monday reset.
The financial crime scene.
I remember looking at the charts that morning. Silver wasn't just down, it was broken. It dropped roughly 35% in a single day. Gold was down 10%.
Just for context, a 1% move in gold is a big day. 10% is usually a geopolitical catastrophe. A 35% drop in silver in one session, that's historically unprecedented.
So naturally, the official narrative, the cover story, was that this was all about Kevin Warsh. He's a hard money hawk, he's going to strengthen the dollar, and a strong dollar hurts precious metals, so investors got scared and sold.
That's the clean, simple story that fits on a news banner. But the sources we read say it's complete nonsense. You don't get a 35% drop from investor sentiment.
You get that from a kill switch.
A kill switch, that's the term.
Okay, let's unpack that. What actually happened in the plumbing of the market to cause that drop?
It happened at the CME Group, the exchange where these metals are traded. Without any warning, right as the markets opened, they hiked margin requirements by 36%.
Okay, for listeners who don't trade futures, margin is, it's basically the down payment, right?
Right. Think of it like buying a house. You don't pay the full price up front. You put down a deposit. So if you want to control, say, $100,000 worth of silver contracts, you don't put up $100,000. You put up maybe $10,000 as a good kick deposit. That's your margin.
So you're leveraged, controlling a lot of metal with just a little bit of cash.
Exactly. Now, imagine the exchange wakes up Monday morning and says, that $10,000 isn't enough anymore. We need $36,000, and we need it in the next hour.
And if I don't have an extra $26,000 just lying around in cash?
The exchange automatically sells your position. They liquidate you. They don't ask. They just dump your silver on the market. Now, apply that to thousands of traders and hedge funds all at the exact same moment.
It's a forced liquidation. It's not that they wanted to sell.
They had to sell. The source calls it flushing the leverage. It wiped out the retail investors and the small players instantly. But here's the key question. If everyone is forced to sell, who is on the other side buying?
The whales.
The institutional players, the ones with deep enough pockets to absorb that margin hike, they swooped in and bought the physical assets at a massive artificial discount.
This is what the sources call the 30-minute crime scene. They estimate $6 trillion in paper wealth was erased in minutes. But there's a twist here. The sources describe a great divergence.
This is the most critical signal in all the noise. If you only looked at the price on your screen, you saw a crash. But if you looked at the flow of the actual metal, you saw a heist.
What do you mean?
While the paper price in New York and London was crashing, something very different was happening in the East, specifically on the Shanghai Gold Exchange.
While New York was selling paper contracts,
Shanghai was draining physical inventory.
so the price on the screen says gold is cheap, but if you try to actually get your hands on a bar, it's all moving east.
Exactly. Western markets deal largely in paper promises derivatives. Eastern markets are increasingly focused on physical delivery. The crash on that Monday allowed the East to buy physical metal at the West's artificially suppressed paper price.
Why? Why is the East so hungry for physical gold right now? This feels like it connects to the final piece of this puzzle, the end game.
You cannot understand that crash without understanding the unit.
This is the new BRICS currency we've been hearing about.
Right. The BRICS alliance, Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa, it's expanded. It now includes Saudi Arabia, Iran, the UAE. They're launching a trade currency called the unit. And unlike the dollar or the euro, it isn't just fiat. It isn't just backed by faith and credit.
It is a specific backing structure, the 40-60 rule, right?
Correct. The unit is backed 40% by physical gold and 60% by a basket of their local currencies. And crucially, it uses decentralized blockchain settlement.
Which means it bypasses the US dollar entirely. It bypasses SWIFT.
It's immune to sanctions. For this system to work, though, for that 40% backing to be credible, the BRICS nations need massive amounts of physical gold in their vaults.
So if I'm following the logic here, the Monday reset crash in the West was effectively a clearance sale for the BRICS nations.
That is the theory. The crash allowed them to accumulate the reserves needed to back the unit before it becomes a global standard. It's a wealth transfer from west to east, all facilitated by these paper markets.
And the West just let it happen. Or did the West make it happen?
That's the billion-dollar question. The sources point to a historical parallel that's really chilling. They point to 1966 and the British sterling crisis.
Remind us what happened there.
The UK was drowning in debt after the wars and losing its empire. They faced a choice. Default on their debt, which is instant bankruptcy, or debase the currency.
Meaning, intentionally make the money worth less so you can pay back the debt with cheaper pounds.
The British maneuver. They chose debasement. Now look at the US today. We are sitting on $35 trillion in debt. It's unpayable.
So you're saying the US is doing its own British maneuver?
The source argues yes, and Kevin Warsh. He isn't there to save the dollar's purchasing power. They call him the controlled demolition expert.
That sounds counterintuitive. If he's a hawk, shouldn't he be protecting the value of the money?
He's saving the system, not your savings. By letting the markets crash, by fleshing out the leverage, he is overseeing the painful transition. He saves the dollar's existence as a currency by sacrificing its value.
And it seems like some European nations see this coming. Germany, Italy.
They do. They've started talking about repatriating their gold from U.S. vaults. They want their metal back on their own soil because they realize that if the music stops, a paper receipt from an exchange isn't gold.
If the price crashes but you can't get delivery, the price is a lie.
You want the asset, not the IOU.
So let's zoom out and look at the whole playbook, because when you stack it up, from the noise to the crash, it's terrifyingly efficient.
It really is a masterclass. Step 1, the fire hose. Create a massive distraction with the Epstein files so no one can look away.
Step 2, the decapitation. Use the renovation trap to remove the independent Fed chair without a messy public fight.
Step 3, the plant. Install a compromise candidate, Warsh, while the media is looking the other way, and use the noise to hide his own connections.
And then step 4, the reset.
Crash the paper market with the margin hike. Flush out the little guys. Allow the big players and the East to buy the physical assets at rock-bottom prices to back the new system.
And the sources mention one final concept, the exit door.
It's a psychological trap.
Yeah.
Imagine you're a normal person holding some silver. You see it drop 35% in a day. What do?
You panic, you sell. You think, this is a bad investment, I'm losing everything.
Exactly. You sell the real asset and you move back into dollars. But the crash was designed to make that exit so painful that you stay trapped in the burning building. You stay in the dollar right as it's being debased.
It forces you to question what value even is. We spend our life looking at numbers on a screen, our bank balance, our 401k, the stock ticker. We think that's wealth.
But in a world of infinite noise, of these fire hoses of falsehood, those numbers can be manipulated. They can be erased. The only thing that can't be faked or diluted is the physical asset in your hand.
The source ends with a warning about a delivery failure.
That's the final stage. The warning is that the next reset won't be a price crash where the line just goes down. It will be a moment where the paper price goes to zero or infinity. It doesn't matter, because the physical assets will become unobtainable at any price.
Meaning you can have all the dollars you want, but you just can't buy the metal.
Exactly. The window closes.
It's a sobering thought to end on. We started this deep dive talking about noise, about how hard it is to find the truth when everything is screaming at you.
And the answer seems to be that the truth isn't on the screen.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So as we wrap up this look into the chaotic start of the year, we're left with a very provocative question. When the screen goes dark and the noise finally stops, what do you actually hold?
That is the question everyone should be asking themselves right now.
Thanks for listening to this deep dive. It's a lot to process, but that's why we're here. We'll see you next time.